Welcome again. During the videos, we explained the basics, concepts, and many operations related to dealing with all Samsung models in general, no matter how different the type of therapist on it, whether it remains like MediaTek, Qualcomm, or SPID. During the parts of the course that came after Samsung, we will explain in detail all the concepts, terms, and ways to deal with all these processors from traveling without any prior experience you have. However, during the next lecture, we will talk about an important type of processor for brand Samsung. They are Exynos processors, and I have crammed Exynos processors here between Samsung lectures and for more than one reason. The first reason is that all the basics, processes and terms that they went through from the beginning of the course until the lecture reached this now. You will also apply to Samsung Exynos models and all the upcoming lectures such as work lectures on Boxat and Wool tools. So you will apply to the Samsung Exynos models, and the second reason is the basis for providing deals to, which is that we are talking about the processor status of Samsung X6 and it was possible to do it for a separate part as the rest of the processors after writing. But we have seen that the lectures are inside the Samsung part in order to get out of the part and you have information and skills for brand Samsung completely. Okay, well, and I understand the explanation. We learn about the mode of the processor for Samsung SCOMs, its benefits and importance, and we know information about it and the ways. For the most important process that we can do for Samsung phones, except for the processing of Exynos by placing the processor. Let's start with the first point with us and know the most important information and details of Exynos processors. Boss, teacher, all the zakat, we will have different processors from different companies, such as MediaTek and Qualcomm spread processors, and Kirin processors. Or I will talk about a SoC, which is an abbreviation of system and alarm, and we get to know more about the concepts, but during the parts that come, and since we are currently in the Samsung part, we talk about the needs of Samsung devices. I mean, you will meet Samsung mobile phones, they will have Mediatek processors, and other models will be met. I mean, you will always find MediaTek or Spreaks MediaTek in the phones of the juice that are often expensive. You will always have Qualcomm Snapdragon processors on them. This is the global processors, which you will meet on the second Android prizes, such as Huawei, Oppo, Xiaomi, Infinix, and Vivo. And they Android brands means all mobile companies, according to the variations, by buying processors from manufacturers. But Samsung specifically is distinguished from all the other companies in a very important need, because you will meet Samsung models, will have all the processors that have missed what we say. But Samsung will also meet with the processing of Exynos processors, which are the most currently used on brand Samsung. Okay, what are the processes of Exynos, which has engineering? Exynos processors are a type of mobile processor such as Qualcomm, MediaTek, Spirit, and Kirin. But the most important thing in the matter is that Exynos processors are manufacturing and developing Samsung, which means that it is responsible for it, its development and its manufacture from A to Z and what you buy from a second company. And it descends it on its devices, such as the rest of the second processors and Exynos processors, characterized by their high performance and insulting them at work. In addition, it does not consume battery energy, such as the rest of the second and most important processors in all these budgets. As we have said, what we have said is the manufacture of Samsung, and accordingly, it is characterized by integration with Samsung mobile phones, and it works with them very smoothly and supports the 5th generation networks and thus provides you with a high internet speed and also works with artificial zakat technologies to provide you with an experience of use on you. And therefore, if you will compare Exynos processors with the processors currently in the market, you can compare them Qualcomm Snapdragon processors. Because it is not less about it in use, speed, hibernation and distinguished performance in dealing with games and applications, and it will be like that, you will find most of the modern Samsung models until today. The markets are downloaded and they have Exynos processors with different numbers because they are fast and SPA in performance as we said, and since Exynos processors are developed by Samsung. Therefore, it will be difficult for Samsung to be pressured in some ingredients and treatments are prevented is what happened, and we looked with Huawei after the American sanctions were imposed on it. It is prevented from using some processors and some electronic components of American companies such as Qualcomm Snapdragon processors and some ingredients for the second semiconductors. Of course, the matter negatively affected Huawei company and shortened its senses in the market, but for Samsung, it is difficult for the issue to happen with it now, despite the fact that South Korea in general and Samsung in particular, in understandings between it and America and in a great cooperation between them in all fields, whether technological fields or military fields. Consequently, it is difficult for America to impose sanctions like Huawei company, but this matter is prohibited from Samsung, that it is developing its own processors, so that it is not subject to any blackmail or penalties in the future. You can prevent them from developing, and although Exynos processors are downloaded on Samsung mobile phones as we said, but I did not think that this will continue a lot, because if we return to the device and mobile phones page on the Exynos processors, the process, we will find a collection of other models from Vivo, such as Vivo XSX, XSX Pro, XSX, XSX Pro models. Thus the models are like what it is clear that they have Exynos processors. But a moment like this if we are spirit in our goodness from any model of Vivo on the GSM Arena website. And we went down to see the mobile phones and the therapist on it, so we noticed that the mobile has a Qualcomm Snapdragon processor as you see this. Okay, what are you? And when the mobile has a Qualcomm processor, why is it within the mobile phones that have Exynos processors, as we saw with some of the a little on the Samsung site? Boss, Pasha, to explain this point in particular and understand it, so let us go to the website in Sapidia and see information about the mobile and its specifications. And if we download a little, I notice with me here that the models were downloaded from a copy with a Qualcomm processor and a second copy with an Exynos processor, meaning the international version. The directed to all countries of the world, so they brought down the Qualcomm Snapdragon processors. As for the version of the state of China only, so they went down to them XS processors. Thus, it shows us that Samsung is trying to reach new markets. And he sells the treatments of these second companies. I mean, in the future, we will see second non-Samsung bonds that will download the market, and they have the processes of Exynos and will not be limited to Samsung mobile phones only. This was the most important information and details that you need to know about Exynos processors. Okay, completely the question, what remains is the processor for Samsung accessories and the outfit. And how do we work in these devices on Talasys software? And this is what we will know and explain in detail in the lecture that comes, God willing, when we speak and explain the rest of the points that are with us. And let us complete our words and explain in the video that comes, God willing, peace.